Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, I interview facilitator, activist, and my good friend, Lloyd Wilkey. Check it out. Greetings, I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. As you know, this is my year of grace. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today sharing your greatest gifts, your time, and your energy means the world to me. I hope you know that you are loved and appreciated just where you are. Today, I have an amazing guest, a brilliant facilitator, an amazing friend, a professional badass. He goes by the name of Lloyd Wilkey. How's it going, Lloyd?
I'm good. I didn't know we could say badass on...
you can swear.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless you plan on wanting to share this with any youth you mentor and you don't want us to swear.
No.
Okay. If you're involved, I know nationally, internationally as well, but especially in the LA scene, if you do anything youth development related or around social justice or around working with police or anything where you're really trying to use facilitation as a way to cultivate transformation, self-awareness, accountability, all those kind of things, the name Lloyd Wilkey is going to come up. I remember a good story was I subbed for you for Youth Thinks Gender Justice workshop. And one of my friends told me later, people kept being like, where's Lloyd? Where's Lloyd? Who's this guy that's here instead of Lloyd? What's going on? So that's if you're on a facilitation team, you're always looking for someone like Lloyd to be there. Not someone like Lloyd. People are actually looking for Lloyd to be there. So that's kind of the back end I know. But how would you introduce yourself to people who don't know?
My name's Lloyd.
There it is.
My pronouns are he and him.
Mm-hmm.
I have been involved in human relations work for probably about 30 years. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how we cross paths, I guess. Mm-hmm. I've been, I guess focused on kind of community building, working with different communities to hash out problems. Mm-hmm. From the beginning, it's always been about trying to facilitate, I guess healing and peace. Mm. Yeah.
How did you get on that pathway to facilitate healing and peace? There's a lot of...
Well, I wasn't always on that pathway. I was facilitating probably the opposite.
Okay.
No, not really. I think, I don't know, the path began for me in getting in this work. Well, actually, I wasn't always here in LA. So I came from Boston.
Okay.
I was born and raised there, and my early formative years, I had a lot of different experiences. Mm-hmm. And as with all of us, it's our experiences in the past that shape us, and and kind of propel us into the things that we become. Yeah. So my early experiences had to do with being raised in Boston, mm-hmm. In a racially tense atmosphere from the start, and I was I'm the grandchild of immigrants, mm-hmm. right, on both sides of my family, and so there was that, but also race. Everything was just kind of really right there on the surface for me at a very early age. Mm-hmm. So those things really impacted me. And then, when I came out here, I came to LA in 1980, right? And I began to, really become involved in community stuff and work, trying to learn my way around and to become a part of the community here. So, all those experiences, got me here. But I'll tell you, the one real thing that really shaped me in my work was in the early 90s, 1992. You'll recall that there was a certain episode with a certain individual who got brutally beaten by the police, right? Rodney King, and that resulted in a trial for the officers, and the officers were exonerated, and the city kind of blew up, right? So we had an uprising. Some people called it a riot. Some people called it civil disobedience. It depended on which side of the fence you were on. So that incident really propelled me to kind of really rethink what kind of work I wanted to do and how I wanted to, invest my time in work. So I really began in earnest at that moment.
Yeah, coming to LA, I think you hear a lot of, I've heard a lot of people and a lot of organizations talk about that was their start right there. And even driving through LA or being in LA, people will point to different parts, like even in Koreatown or something, and say that, like here, there was uprising, that it reached all the way to here.
Yeah, it was intense. I had a newborn baby, and I was holding her in my arms, standing in front of my apartment building, and I would look up in the sky and I could see the plumes of smoke. I could hear gunshots. I could hear helicopters, and it was just, intense. And I'm standing there thinking, well, what am I supposed to be doing right now, right? And my wife came out and reminded me that what I'm going to do right now is bring that baby in the house.
It's not time for meditation.
But following that, I really had to come to grips with, what did I have to contribute? And if I had it, why wouldn't I give it and try to do something, And so I really started in earnest then, and I began to do a lot of study and a lot of volunteer work in the community and stuff like that. And that just kind of really, one thing sort of led to the next.
What was after that the first? How were you introduced to this term, this profession, facilitation?
Well, I was in the banking business, and I was part of my job was to do training. So I was a kind of a training person. So I was already sort of doing a little, presentations and stuff like that. And then I went. I signed on with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You might remember that they were the organization that Dr. King started, and they have an office here in Los Angeles. And so I signed on with them to do to learn mediation in their Martin Luther King Dispute Resolution Center. So I learned mediation through that center.
Wow.
And practiced with neighbor to neighbor disputes and practiced with various other consumer merchant disputes until I got some sense of what was all involved in that. And so and then I got introduced to a program called LEADER. It was called Leadership Development in Interethnic Relations. It was a 9-month journey. That was really it was facilitated by some expert facilitators, and I started to watch them in the process of what we were doing, and I went, wow, okay, I think I might have found what I can do. And so I kind of got involved there, and I later became their training coordinator.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I later got recruited by the Museum of Tolerance. And so then things just kind of picked up from there.
So, one thing that you see sometimes or you hear is in the early 90s, you had things like the Oprah Winfrey Show or Sesame Street or, really mainstream. It seemed like there was this really open and honest as mainstream is going to get, desire to talk about race. Versus today where social media does that, but you don't see it as much as the way it seemed to be then. Is that a perception that we have wrong looking back, or did you notice there was like a little bit more of a desire then than there is now?
I don't know. I I don't really think I've ever had the perception that it's been that there was a desire to really have the honest conversation, right? And to really go there. You know, I don't think I know that through some of the work that we have involved. I worked with the NCCJ. They were then known as the National Conference for Christians and Jews. We had a youth camps, right? You probably know about that. You know, we take young people out of the city for a week and have those honest conversations with them. Those were some really optimistic times. Yes, I had some real, you know, good, you know, optimism around that. But outside of that, I don't know. I think the conversations around race usually involve somebody's a lawsuit. You know, a lawsuit happened, and then okay, now we better sit down and have a conversation about race. You know, that's been my experience.
Well, you named two ways that we've intersected. First, we both started working at the Museum of Tolerance together. And then had a couple all-you-can-eat Indian buffet, 2-hour long conversations.
We got to do that again.
Yes, we do. And we both found out that we both started with, we both at one time worked at a branch of NCCJ, where I was, after NCCJ went under, mine was called Community Tampa Bay, and we called that program Anytown. And you had and that's what you were talking about, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That for me was an aha moment. I had come from college, after a college major, where we really had a clear understanding of the problem. And the solutions we studied were more like armed revolution. You know, sort of like Mao and Castro, and never outright said. You know, and I was like, I don't know if that's for me. So when I discovered facilitation, I was like, oh wow, you can like dialogue.
Right. I think I was mentored in that atmosphere at the NCCJ. It later became the National Conference for Community and Justice. But I was mentored. There was some really talented and experienced people, some very wise people that knew so much more about all this stuff than I did. I didn't, you know, I was just coming into it. I was in the banking business. I was in the music business. You know, I wasn't really. I hadn't had any academic inputs, you know. I was just coming in just with a desire to want to use whatever talents I had to try to facilitate, and I learned that, you know, I kind of had a niche for it, you know, and so you know, I was mentored. I was you know, got a lot of practice, and I learned a lot.
Well, I'm sure there's been underlying themes that have been consistent throughout the years. Have you noticed any sort of issue or like a demographic conversation that's come up differently throughout the years?
I don't think I would say that I've noticed that the topics have come up differently. I think my reactions have evolved and changed over time. My own attitudes evolve and change over time, and my own involvement. Right? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm saying it right, but here's what I'm thinking. You know, in the beginning, I think my idea was that, you know, through dialogue we would humanize each other. Yeah. And that would be enough. Yeah. You know, that we would get to know each other. I worked for the city attorney's office. They had the Days of Dialogue program right after the riot, or the civil unrest, or the uprising. Yeah. Right. And we were attempting to bring law enforcement together with the community to have dialogue. These dialogues continue to this day, and I sometimes will participate in them. In the beginning, my thought was, we would humanize police officers, and the public would be humanized, and that would be enough.
Yeah.
Turns out not to be really the case. Over time, my thinking around that has evolved. Something else has to happen, so that the dialogue has to be intentional. Now, for me, right? This is just me saying this. Other facilitators, maybe not so much, but I feel like we have to dialogue with the intent of solving a problem. Right? Used to be we're just dialoguing to dialogue. You know what I mean? And dialogue in and of itself was the purpose. There was no purpose. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So now I think we've got to be intentional. If we're going to sit down to have a dialogue, yes, we're going to share our stories. We're going to come away from this hopefully having some sort of more trust building and rapport building and all that. That's good. And hopefully we will like each other. Somewhere, at least some way, we will reach each other where we can resonate. You know what I mean?
I do.
And that's important. But will we solve a problem together?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right now. I mean, especially in the work that I do with law enforcement, I want to see something change.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's often the critique of dialogue.
Yes.
Is that just getting somebody who's different from you to see you as human, you then become the exception.
Yeah.
Whereas we have to then connect that new bridge of the relationship to something systemic.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you work with law enforcement. In what capacity do you do that?
So as often as I get the chance, we do training with law enforcement. So at the Museum of Tolerance, there's what's called diversity training. There's also work around racial profiling, around hate crimes, and sort of professional development for law enforcement at every level, right? So besides that, on my own, I try to do as much as possible to try to promote this idea that I have, which is called mindful policing, and then also to try to, again, work with community relations with policing, right? But on the flip side, I'm also an activist, right? So because of my own experiences, I want to hold law enforcement accountable, and I want them to be mindful and responsible and transparent and all those things. And so I'm also involved in activism, right? So I affiliate myself with Black Lives Matter, and I try to push, for change, in law enforcement, and mainly in the law. My thing is to change law enforcement culture, right? So if I can work inside in some ways to try to change the culture, I will do that. If I have to work from the outside to try to force a change in culture, I will do that. This sort of position I'm in is kind of conflicted sometimes. It's kind of an interesting place to be.
Yeah. We just had a previous guest who talked about she's an expert in youth development, like yourself. She works in probation and all these kind of things. And she talks about how they were able to change police culture in the way they deal with young people who are sex trafficked, where they used to arrest anybody who was, doing sex work that was under 18 as saying it was a criminal act. And now we realize that it's not a choice, that you can't say somebody's that.
Right.
What are some cultural things? I know it's a huge question. What are some cultural things you see that we can point to, like, we want to see a shift like this?
Right. Well, that's a really good example right there. I spend a lot of time visiting different probation facilities, right? And until that shift occurred, there was a growing population of young women that were incarcerated, right? And it was really disturbing, right? You would see these young women, and you sit down and hear their stories, and you like, for every woman that's in here, there should be like 3 guys in here instead of them, right? They were there. I won't go into all of the stories that I've heard, but they're not the ones responsible for the situation they're in.
Yeah.
So that's a policy shift.
Yeah.
Right. That changes the culture. And those are the things that I think we need to really concentrate on and think about how we are approaching, all these situations. Trying young people at 13 years old as adults, that's not really a good idea. I fought that when we fought that way back in the 90s and unsuccessfully, but it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Right? Those 3 strikes laws, those were stupid, and counterproductive. But all those kinds of things need to be fought. But in terms of the culture and the way that police interact with public, there's that. Within you often hear this idea that that law enforcement generally is okay and compliant and so on, but that there are a few bad apples that give them a bad name, and I kind of try to push back on that idea, because I just think that the ways that officers are trained, the ways that they are, the culture of the organization, the way that it's run, the way that they, the policies, all either encourage or condone certain behaviors, right? You don't, and if it weren't that, those bad apples, as you call them, wouldn't feel they could get away with the behaviors that they were, that they were doing. You know what I mean? So I think a lot has to be really thought through and discussed and worked on, and people could come together on it. It'd be great if we had more citizen oversight of what police are doing. We have these quasi panels of people who are put in place to do that, but it's not real oversight. We've got to have, it needs to be real oversight.
So you've worked with recruits for years now, probably thousands of recruits, right?
Yeah.
What are some themes that you see, or what are some connections that you find, or what are some conversations that you often find yourself having?
Yeah. So when I leave here, I'm going to Orange County to the police academy down there, and I've been asked by a colleague to sit down and talk with his class, and they will soon graduate the academy and be on the street. So I think to myself, well, what do I want them to know?
Yeah.
Right? What do I want them to know before they get turned loose on the street?
Yeah.
Right? And so, I would ask that question to anybody out there, right? What do you want them to know? If they're going to be policing you, what would you want them to know?
Yeah.
And so I spend time thinking about that question and trying to answer that question. So and to your point, what are some of the things that come up? I hear recruits daily say to me that the reason that they became involved in law enforcement was because they wanted to help people, right? That they wanted to be of service, that they wanted to change things for the better in their own neighborhoods and in the city and where they live and work. And so, and when I'm sitting down with them, they're usually young people, you know. And I think back to when I was their age. And I think about how idealistic I used to be at that time, and how I saw the world, and how I wanted to do something to change things for the better. You know, and I believe them. I really believe them when they say, this is what I really wanted to do. Now, there's a few that are in there that are saying, well, you know, it was a good job. You know, they got benefits, and, you know, and it's, you know, and that's their motivation. You know, okay, that's not a negative motivation. It's not really a positive, you know. But I think that they don't worry me so much as the ones that are clearly not in it for altruism or for the money.
Or monetary.
You know, you do meet occasionally, you know, one or two that you're not clear what their motivation is, right? And those are the ones that, you know, maybe you want to try to question them further before they actually get the badge and the gun. But for the most part, I want to say 90% or 99% of the recruits I've met, you know, are really just individuals who really want to try to do good, right? And what I try to do in those conversations, what do I want them to know? What I want them to know is that it will be difficult for them to hang on to that altruism, right? And they have to find a way to do that. They have to find a way to balance their lives in such a way that they maintain friendships and relationships with their families and friends, and also in the face of some of the horrific things they're going to see and be involved with, still hold on to the reason that they came into this. And they're going to need those outside relationships. You know, that's really hard. That's really hard for them to maintain those relationships in a positive way, and not allow all this negativity that's going to come to them, that's for sure coming, to drag them down, right? Because I've seen officers 10 years down the line that have a complete shift in, you know, why they're in the work and their whole attitude toward the work, right? And I think that's where I want to spend time the most with officers is in, you know, what it's there's so much that is out of your control. You know, you put on the badge, you put the gun, you put the uniform on, you get out here. Most of your work is out of your control. There's only one thing that you have control over. That's you. Right? You can control you. How you're going to respond to all of this. And so this is the part I want to focus on right here. Because that's the only part that's in your control. You can't control the politics, the policies. You can't control where they put you, what time you're working. You can't control how your partner's working. You can't control all of the public that's coming at you. You can't control the media. You can't control none of that. The only thing you control is you. Right? And I want you to know how to do that.
In high stress situations.
That's mindful policing.
How do people react, or how do the recruits or current officers react when you share that?
Well, you know, at this point, I haven't had a real opportunity to really share the essence of what I'm talking about with you right now. I've been kind of biting around the edges of it and trying to get there, right? There have been some others in different programs around the country that have been experimenting with some things that are related to what I'm talking about. And I see some successes out there, and I've seen some studies that show that I think I'm on the right track. But so I don't know about, but I do, and I will say this too, that there's always resistance, always going to be resistance to any sort of new idea, right? Or a new person coming in with an idea. There will always be resistance. So I run against some resistance. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But there have been some acceptances too. And we just charge on. There's this very now famous, I guess you would say, practitioner of mindfulness. And the word mindfulness is most associated with Thich Nhat Hanh, right? And one of the things I heard him once say was that if there's one person in the home who practices mindfulness, it will impact the rest of the people in the home, right? So all I needed is one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All I gotta do is get one, and he's been successful all around the world, and he's just one guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all it really requires is just somebody to open up, and eventually these ideas will take root.
What's that phrase? Prophets never honored in their own home.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Wasn't Thich Nhat Hanh exiled in Vietnam? He was an activist.
I know that I know he's an activist for sure. I don't know about it being exiled. Well, yes, I think so.
Because I think he came up around the time of Martin Luther King and everything.
And Dr. King nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, he's amazing. I have had the good fortune to have met him. Yeah, it's an amazing person.
You seem to resonate with that phrase. What does that mean for you?
It's it just means that things start small, and as long as you just stay dedicated, eventually eventually. If it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. And you can't stop it.
A lot of the conversations we've had, a lot of the work we do is around working with young people that nobody else wants to work with, or that they get kicked out after kicked out after kicked out to the room where they send kids where they can't be kicked out any further.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, I work with young people of from all backgrounds. I started a youth program called Keep It Real. We've been doing it for just over maybe 25 years now. Started as a violence prevention program in Inglewood at an Episcopal church, Holy Faith Episcopal Church, and we started with a group of about 40 young African American males that were coming to us from around the Inglewood High School area, right? There were probably about 20 of them at that time when I first got started. And the idea was that I was going to translate all this stuff about, conflict resolution that I was learning, and all the stuff about mediation and community building, all the stuff I was learning at that time in the 90s, and I was going to, do trainings with these young people, and soon became clear to me that I can't dictate anything. Right? I had to learn about doing youth work.
Yep.
Man. When you're doing youth work, it's like, no, man, no. In the beginning, I really had to learn. And so it took a lot of listening and just hanging around and providing a space for some young people to come and hang out, so that I could hear from them what was important to them. And then just get to know them and them to get to know and trust me, And so when that started to happen, then we started to get to what was really important in their lives, and so then we could really focus our attention on those things, and that stuff has evolved over time. There were periods of time where I was hearing stuff about the lack of attention they were getting at school, because I was mainly working with high school students at the time, and so we started to try to focus on the academics and try to help them with that. Then over time that kind of waned, and then we got into some other things, and then there was an interest in having a basketball team, so we put together a basketball team. So now I'm a basketball coach, and so I had to get some basketball books. And that was okay. We had some good players, but using the activity as a means of really drawing out some other things. Getting us together, is learning about teamwork, learning about working together, and again resolving conflicts. That was and doing problem solving and figuring out things. At some point, we realized that the reason we started the program was there was a lot of gang activity in the area, and a lot of it was was supposed to have been called interracial gang problems, right? And so it was obvious to me that there was a need for us to have the conversation about the other who was not in the room. So it was the Latino gangs and us over here, right? And so I kept asking questions about, well, don't you guys know anybody that doesn't look like us? Don't we have any friends like, and they were like, the question was, a foreign question, right? Why would we? And so we started to have provide some opportunities for some cross-cultural communication to happen, right? There's a long story connected to that, which involves a camping trip, and 40 dudes from over here and 40 dudes. It was like we had a total of about 40 that went camping that weekend, and from half of them came from Santa Monica, and some of them came from Inglewood, and we got them together, and whew, I'm glad to be alive to tell the story.
Because of the bunk beds you had to sleep in?
Oh, that too, yeah. But yeah, it was quite an experience, and it taught me a lot, And from that moment on, we began to really gain some momentum and try to work on the issues that were in the community. And so today, my organization still goes on, and the Keep It Real program is still going on. It's now a boxing self-defense and leadership program, and we now our youngest student is 8 years old, and our oldest is now he's not a student anymore, but he's 30 years old. He was there back then. And he's now the head coach.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we've come a long way, and so now I'm a boxing coach. I went from.
But you like boxing, right?
Oh yeah. Right now I have 2 fractured ribs.
Oh my gosh, from boxing.
Don't get me started. My wife is mad, and it hurts.
Yes, I believe it. You know, when we would have conversations about youth development, I learned a lot from you, and I appreciate that.
I learned a lot from you too.
I appreciate that. One story you told that always sticks with me, and I share it, that I'd like for you to share is, I won't give it away, so I'll just say the slamming door, the young person who'd come in and slam the door. Does that ring a bell? Him. I feel like this story really, like, encapsulates youth development for me.
Yeah, you're talking about the young person who I was doing the anger management classes. Yep. Yeah, we were doing anger management classes at a middle school. The whole approach to this thing was well intentioned, but it was just wrong. It was wrong, man. The idea was they would collect all of the students who, you know, were sort of the frequent flyers to the principal's office. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they would just put them in a room together and then say, "Okay, Mr. Wilkey, fix them." You know? And I'm like, no, that's not how. Well, anyway, for months and months and months and months, everything I was learning and reading in books, I was trying to apply. And man, it was such a frustrating period of my life, man. I would go home in tears, man. Almost every night, because it wasn't because of them. It was because the approach is wrong. That's not how you do it. But I tried to work with what we had. And you talked about we're in a classroom and fighting is breaking out, man, and furniture is being tossed, and I'm in the middle trying to break up fights, and all sorts of stuff like that was going on, and it was really frustrating. And so I had to really step back. I had to get help too. I had to reach out. I reached out to my business partner, my good friend, my longtime partner in all of this. Her name's Pam, Pam Seisner. And we started to try to figure out how we could co-facilitate and how we could work together to try to, bring about some change. But the young person you're talking about was a 8th grader. He was a big fella, he's a big guy. He was way bigger than me, and he would come to the class really, really angry every time, and we'd be like, I was trying to do some stuff like meditation, right? I had all the group, I'd have maybe 10 students in there, and I would just get them settled in, and we were just about to, and we were taking that third deep breath, man, and here he comes, bam! Slams the door, and he comes in. Okay, now we can start class because I'm here. Yeah. And this guy, every time I saw him, man, my first reaction was this. Every time I would see him, I would roll my eyes, and it would, and you could visibly see my frustration with seeing him. And then I read this book somewhere. I don't remember what it was. Some well-known educator. He was really making me look at me. And it goes back to what we were talking about the cops. There's a lot of it's out of my control. I can't control him. I can't control the environment he's raised in. I can't control the school. But what can I control? I can control me. I have control over my response to all of that. And it became clear to me that throughout the day, he probably has 6 classes a day. And every time he walks into the class, the teachers probably go, The one consistent thing that's happening to him all day, every day, is the reaction of the teachers and the other adults around him is probably always, I'm guessing, that same negativity is coming at him.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'm going to be different. I'm going to be different. That's not going to happen. And so I started to wait for him to come, and when he would come, I embraced him. I complimented him on something. I was waiting for you, man. I was so glad to see you. Now we can get started with the class because you're here now, right? You're important to me. I care about you. And I can't do this without you. I need you. And there was a point, this thing went up and down, but I could see over time, it wasn't, immediate, but I could see how our relationship changed. And because our relationship changed, some of our behaviors changed. My behavior changed, his behaviors changed. As we developed a relationship, right? And I remember one time he really was off the rails this particular day, and I just asked him, what would it take to get you on my side? I pulled him outside and asked him, and look, man, I'm trying to do something here. What would it take to get you on my side? I said, and I reached in my pocket, and I think I had a $5 bill. I said, would this do it? Right? He said, yup. He said, yup, that'll do it. He became my enforcer in the classroom. After that, I could count on him to get everybody to settle down. Right? Hey, Mr. Wilkey's talking. Calm down over there. I don't know, man. I don't think there's no textbook answer for that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not even sure that's ethical. Yeah. But it worked. Yeah. In that moment, right? And clearly, I learned so many things in that environment. Again, I said that approach is wrong. But we had to understand that we were working with young people who, if you really thought through what a typical day would be like for some of these young people, you had to have a different kind of empathy. And you had to use a different approach. We eventually ended up calling that program Keep It Real. That's how Keep It Real really got started back then. This was way back. And what we did was I started seeing so many fights and stuff. And then we had, at one point, we were able to have a little dialogue, and the kids were telling me, I think I was listening in on a conversation that they were having with each other. Yeah, there was like 3 or 4 girls that got together and they were chatting, about something, and I just like eavesdropped on it. Yeah, and they were talking about what's that guy? No, not him. Jerry Springer. Okay. It was, man, did you see what happened on Jerry Springer last night? Boom, boom, blah, 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 blah. They would, blow for blow, they were telling what happened on Jerry Springer last night. And I'm like, Jerry Springer came on at like 11:30 last night. You were up watching Jerry Springer last night? Oh yeah, we all watched it. Oh, okay. And so what did you see? So they went into how so-and-so got mad, and then this one got mad, and then they jumped up and they were fighting, and I was like, okay. And so then, other questions would come up about, just other circumstances in their lives, about, nutrition that seemed to be missing. I learned about what a food desert was, right? I learned about the conditions of the classrooms and the school and the relationships they had with their teachers and their substitute teachers who were there more often than their permanent teachers. And I started to hear things about all the fighting that goes on in the surrounding area and then outside the school where the fighting was happening and the violence and the things. And I started to hear things about personal, struggles they were going through at home. And so then I had them starting to journal. That was the next thing we did. Gave everybody a journal, and then I would collect them. And then if somebody wrote something, I put a star by it. I got a lot of stickers, and I just applaud them for writing anything in the book, or draw a picture in there. Just sit here for 5 minutes and write down something, and then I started having some questions I would ask them about, their lives and whatever, who do they admire, different other things. And they would write stuff, and some people really wrote some really heart-wrenching stories in there. And I would applaud them. I wasn't looking at the grammar, I wasn't looking at the spelling, and I just kept encouraging them to write. And so I started to use all of that, and I used the Jerry Springer thing. And what I did was I got some students from USC that came down. They were filmmaking students or something, and they had some cameras and whatever. And they came down, they brought some lights and whatever. And I said, we're going to write a script. And we're gonna do our own Jerry Springer show. Yeah. Right. And so that was the first one. We did a Jerry Springer show. And then what we did though was when somebody jumped up and started fighting or whatever, I said, cut! Cut! Okay, they would cut and they said, what can we do differently? Right? Because I was learning that students are learning about conflict. How do you handle conflict from adults, right? And adults you see on television and around you. That's who's teaching you to deal with conflict. Yeah. And so, cut. Let's examine that a bit. Yeah. Let's just examine what you saw. Was that the best way to handle it? How did it come out? What was the consequences of that? Maybe we could have worked it out in a different kind of way. How might you do that? Right? And so then we start experimenting. We have like alternate endings. Yeah. And so then that became role playing for them. Role playing conflict. But they were doing it with a camera, and so they were all excited about that. Then we did a music video about a young man that was accused of being a gangster. You remember that song? I think it was DJ Quick or somebody that, use a gangster, use a gangster, use a gangster. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember the name of the song.
Every time people sing on my podcast, I never know the song.
Right.
I always get called out. But I'm sure people will do.
Right. And so, so we said let's do a music video for that, right? So we had a student picked out. He was falsely accused of being a gangster, and then we had somebody had to be his attorney. And this kid came in there came to school that day, man. I couldn't believe it when I saw him. He looked like little Johnny Cochran, man. He had a little chain on and stuff, man. I was like, oh, dude. And we dressed somebody up as a judge, and we had a jury, and we did the whole. It was really tight, Then we did a couple of PSAs on when we were fighting against that proposition to make to try juveniles as adults. We did a PSA on that, and we had young people talking, 13-year-olds talking to the camera, really, and you're thinking to yourself, now. That's a 13-year-old we're talking about, right there, right? And so it was pretty amazing and very, very intense. And I think when we got to that place, we started to figure some things out, and a lot of that behavior stuff that we were talking about started to make its way out.
It's powerful.
It's all an experiment, though, man.
Yep.
What I learned in that experience is you gotta go with what they. Go with them. Go with the young people. Go meet them where they are and let them lead it. Let them lead it. Yeah. Let them lead the dialogue. Let them lead the discussion to where it needs to go for them. Don't have an agenda. Don't always try to force something on them, but take your experience and your wisdom and is worth something, and try to merge the two things, and that's what I've been trying to do in my youth work. I get criticized for that too. And it is the same, I would say, for the activism. As I'm becoming more and more involved with the activism, I have to understand that this is a day and an age that the young people need to lead me. They need to lead us, and I have to have that same sort of support and give my support in that same way.
Well, I appreciate you sharing these stories and these insights with us.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me over here.
Of course.
We haven't done this in a long time.
I know.
Again, we got to sit down and have lunch.
I'd love that. Yeah, we used to, for folks who don't know, we had a podcast together for about a year with Naila.
Yeah.
Naila, for the folks listening, was on the Courage episode. You might remember that compilation. Naila was on there. And the three of us had a podcast.
The
Conscious Consultants Collective. So, as we're wrapping up, I know that we celebrate Black History 365. But using this month intentionally, Black History Month intentionally, what does this month mean for you, or what comes up for you?
I often, people who are friends of mine know that the holiday season is not really my favorite time of year.
Okay.
Although this season was really, really pleasant for me. It was, very peaceful. I did some work, but I got, just to share some time with family and everything, and it was really good this year. But I don't usually, really get excited about the holidays. In fact, around October, when Halloween hits, I just want to fast forward to Black History Month if I can. And Black History Month, I feel something, actually around King Days, King's birthday, and then leading to Black History Month, I really feel uplifted more than any other time of the year, I think. It's just a time that I just I don't know. I guess I just feel affirmed, and I feel a little more powerful, and gives me opportunity to really say some things that I maybe don't get a chance to say throughout the rest of the year, because we don't focus on Black history the way we should, year round.
Yeah.
Black history is world history.
Yeah.
and it should be focused on all of the time, but it's not. So during Black History Month, I try to take every opportunity to try to inject some more education in that way.
Who's somebody that you know personally, or you don't know but means a lot to you that people might not know about, that you want to share in regards to Black history?
Black history. Dr. James Cone is someone that I wish everybody would get a chance to Google. Dr. James Cone is famously known for Black liberation theology, right? And I got introduced to him because of he was President Obama's spiritual advisor in the beginning during his campaign. His name escapes me. But when he made some comments that were, posted on Fox News and so on, President Obama had to distance himself from his minister.
That was the guy you're talking about right now?
No.
The other one?
Yeah.
Was it something Wright?
Yes, Jeremiah Wright.
Okay.
Jeremiah Wright. Yeah, Dr. Jeremiah Wright. Man, my mother just was in love with it. But I had never heard of him either. But when all the controversy came up, he was on Fox News debating with this guy Sean Hannity, right? I don't ask me why I'm looking at Fox. I don't know, but I'm looking at this, right? And Hannity's talking about this Black liberation theology. That sounds racist to me. I don't know. He said, well, Dr. Wright says to him, sir, respectfully, we can't have a conversation about this until you read something about it, you know, because you obviously don't know anything about Black liberation theology, because you're speaking from a place of just hearing the term, and you don't know any of the substance. I would suggest you read the work of James Cone, right? And when I heard that, I jotted it down, so I went off and tried to read everything that I could that James Cone wrote. And it transformed my thinking about Christianity, about who Jesus was or is, and and what my work in the world should be. You know, it really did change my whole perception of all of those things. You know, and so I like those of you who are out there to get a look at some of his work. He's still a very active professor, and you can find him. You can Google him. He's out there.
Well, I appreciate that. So I've been at workshops where you sang for the folks. What is the song that you sing? I know it has a lot of meaning.
Well, it depends on the situation. I think the time that we were together, it was probably during Black History Month, and like I said, I use that every opportunity to introduce some people to some things. I think we did the Black National Anthem, "Lift Every Voice and Sing," by James Weldon Johnson. It was a poem that was set to music by his brother in the early 1900s.
We talked about before. Would you like to sing it for us?
I'll attempt to do it. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thanks.
What's it feel like to sing that?
It's inspiring. You know, it's inspiring, and it honors my ancestors.
When did you first hear it?
I think I first heard it in the church. Yeah, and it moved me then, and it continues to do that. What
moved you to memorize it and start sharing it the way you do?
Well, I don't know. I always want to grab onto classic songs that need to be handed down. You know, I want to hold on to those and share those. And so that's been one of those that's been really important to me.
Well, I appreciate that. 2 questions for you, then we'll get you on your way so you can get to Orange County. First question, you might have heard me say this is my year of grace. And one of my intentions is not only bring that to my life, but to ask people what that means to them. And so for you, what is grace?
A gift. Grace is a gift. Grace is a gift. I don't know how to say anything more about it. I think it's a gift from God, grace. Gives us hope. Grace animates. I know it's interesting because I need to spend some more time really thinking about the word grace. My mother had a sister named Grace. Her sister died before she was born, and I feel a special connection somehow to her, and so I've actually been thinking about what that means, and I probably need to think a little bit more about it.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna take a year. So every episode we're trying to talk about it. Well, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on it.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, this isn't my second question. This is a invitation for you. Where can folks reach out to you to share with you how much they appreciate you?
My company is called Diverse City Consulting, and we have a little website, diversecityconsulting.net, and you can catch me right there.
Anywhere on social you want people can say?
I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
Lloyd Wilkey, Wilkey. I'm on Twitter at Mindful Policing.
Okay.
And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Folks on the go, tomrell.com/Lloyd, LLOYD, tomrell.com/Lloyd. It's where the show notes with all the link mentioned will be located, so you can just get that easy click. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope it was all right.
Oh, you nailed it. It was awesome. So appreciate that.
Thanks.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Last question, as promised. What is your invitation to those listening to think about, to do, to be, to become, to consider? What's your invitation?
I invite everybody to get in the game in 2019. If there's something that you see out there that needs to be changed for the better, get involved. There's too many of us sitting on the sidelines, and we need to get active if we want to see a change occur. And there's a lot of stuff that needs some change right now. We really have to get after it.
Well said. Well, thank you once again, Lloyd.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right.
And to all those listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.